This has got to be one of the biggest things that I wish I knew at the start of my fitness journey, because I neglected it for such a long time and my progress was slowing because of it. And it's such a simple thing, but not a lot of people put it into action or actually stick with it. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about nutrition. I'm talking about your diet. Because believe me, right, I trained for a long period of time, probably 2-3 years, where I was just lifting and I was just eating crap. I was just eating absolute shit, right? And I was struggling to see results, right? Don't get me wrong, I had some sort of results, but nowhere near to the level from the past, maybe say 1 to 2 years, where I've really dialed in my nutrition, right? So before, when I was lifting, and I wasn't really eating right. I was just eating whatever, right? I wasn't getting enough protein, like probably carbs I was probably getting enough of, but I was just eating too much processed food. Nothing, I didn't have the real building blocks to actually build a good physique, right? So this is why I say, like, nutrition is so important. And I'm not just saying that, like, it truly is. Because if I had, like I said, if I dialed in my nutrition at the start, when I first started really trying to lift, I would have made so much more progress. I'd be further ahead than I am now, right? So I think the past 1 to 2 years is where I've actually made the most progress in the gym, which sounds kind of strange because normally the first year is when people make the most progress, right? And for me, that really hasn't been the case. Don't get me wrong, I did make a significant amount of progress in that first year you start weightlifting. Because it's so fresh, you're always going to make good progress, even if you eat like crap, right? But I saw the most progress from these past 1 to 2 years as of recent, because I dialed in my nutrition. I was eating the right foods. I was making sure I hit my macros, getting enough protein, getting enough carbs, the right amount of fats. I was more dialed in. I still wasn't completely 100%. Don't get me wrong, I had my off days, right? I had days where I struggled to stick to my calories, my macros, like we all do. We're all imperfect. You're going to have some bad days here and there. But for the most part, as long as you're consistent, that's probably the most important part, is just being consistent, right? If you can hit your calories and hit your macros 90% of the week, and maybe you have one day where you just have a cheat day, or like, I don't really like to call it a cheat day, I like to call it a maintenance day or a refeed day. But if you're having that cheat day, right, you've sort of earned it, because you've had that whole week where you've just been dialed in and locked in, right? The only time I probably wouldn't recommend cheat days and refeed days and things like this is if you're 20% body fat and above. You don't need that, because the amount of calories you can still eat while still losing fat every day is near enough a treat day for you, right? And a lot of the time, you'll be able to include some goofy food. You'll be able to include some goofy food into your diet and still be losing weight, because you can consume more calories and still be in a deficit and still lose weight. But I'm telling you, you need to dial in your nutrition, because when I dialed in my nutrition, that's when I really started seeing progress. That's when I really started making some gains, So that's what you want to be focused on. I would put nutrition at the top of the list. And then below that, I would probably put sleep and recovery. And then I would maybe put cardio in after that, right? But if your nutrition's out of whack and your sleep and recovery's out of whack, forget about it. It doesn't matter like how many steps you do and whatever. Like, if your nutrition's off and your sleep and recovery is terrible, you're going to struggle. You really are going to struggle to get results, like I did for such a long time. I struggled. I was training, and don't get me wrong, I saw some form of progress because I was lifting consistently. I was still going to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, but I wasn't eating the right foods. I wasn't getting enough protein and things like that. So I wasn't giving my body the building blocks it really needs to actually build a good physique. Because if you want if you want an aesthetic physique, you need to eat the right type of foods. It's very, very simple. It's very simple. You know, like at the end of the day, if you eat like shit, you're not only gonna feel like shit, you're gonna look like shit. And things started to change for me when I actually started to sort my diet out. That's when things really started to change. And I not only did I start looking better, but I actually started feeling better. Like on a day-to-day basis, I was just always very groggy, very tired. I got ill so much as well. So I honestly was getting ill probably 6 times a year at one point. It was so bad. I was just getting like your common colds and things like that. Like I think I had the flu now and again. And I'm not saying by working out and, you know, eating right, you're never gonna get ill. That's not what I'm saying. But I genuinely cannot remember the last time I was ill. Like where my nutrition and my diet has been so locked in, so dialed in. I've been getting my steps in. I've been weight training minimum of 4 times a week, consistently, right? No days off. I don't even when I don't feel like going, I still go. And that's the beauty of it, right? Once you get into that sort of routine and you keep going, you just stay locked in, right? And the thing is, when you have a lot of fat over your body as well, you start second guessing yourself. You're thinking to yourself, is this even working? Because your muscle is covered by so much fat, you don't, even when you lose weight, you might lose 4 or 5 pounds and you might not even notice the difference because you've got so much fat to lose. You think to yourself, why am I putting in all this effort when I still look the same, right? But you need to get down to the lower body fat percentages for you in order to see the results, right? Because majority of guys, especially if they're over 30 years old, majority of them already have enough muscle, especially if they've been like training in their 20s, like a lot of guys do. They'll train in their 20s, they'll just eat whatever and they'll train, and then they get into their 30s, they put a load of weight on, and then, you know, they think, oh, I can't see my muscles, etc. They're cutting, they don't see any results, and then like, why am I doing this? It's a waste of time, and then they stop. But not realizing that they just need a bit more time, because with this fitness journey, you need to learn about delayed gratification, because it's so like, people are too impatient. Like they really are. Like they get so impatient. Like they'll be going to the gym for like a couple of weeks or maybe a month, and they go to the gym, maybe they've tracked their calories consistently, they're dialed in, they're locked in, and then they're like, why haven't I got the results I want yet? And it's like, well, you still got another 10 pounds of fat to lose. Like, it's gonna take time, and you can't rush the process. That's one thing as well. You cannot rush it. You cannot rush the process. Like, don't try and think you can shortcut your way to a good body by like slashing your calories really hard, trying to do more cardio. Things like this people do, or like they overtrain and they'll be going gym twice a week and twice a day. Like, you don't need to go to the gym twice a day. All you need to do is be efficient. That's all you need to do. You want to aim to lose 1 to 1.5 pounds at the most a week. You shouldn't want to lose any more than that, because that's when you start putting your body under a lot of stress. You're going to increase cortisol levels. And not only that, you're going to find trying to retain muscle a lot harder, because your body is trying to cope with the amount of calories you're consuming, which is nowhere near enough to fuel your body, that like I said, you're probably going to find your muscle retention will be a lot lower. So you're not only going to lose fat, but you're also going to lose muscle. And that's not what you're going to do, especially when you're cutting. You want to retain as much muscle as possible and strip the belly fat off. That's what you want and you need to obtain an attractive physique. So honestly, just make sure you get your nutrition dialed in. Make sure you're getting enough protein, you're getting enough carbs, and you've got the right amount of fats. Get your nutrition dialed in, and you will make so much more progress. And then you can think about maybe adding steps in and things like that. But if your nutrition's out of whack and you're just trying to make up for it by doing cardio, loads of cardio and things like this, or training more, you're going to burn out and you're going to put your body under a lot of stress that isn't necessary. Like I said, you want to get lean and you want to get cut the most efficient way possible. And you do that by not slashing your calories really hard and things like this. Like, you do that by a gradual fat loss. Like I said, you only really want to be losing about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds a week at the most. Anything more than that, you're probably losing muscle as well, right? So I remember I spoke to a guy at work, and he took these, whatever they called, I can't remember them, these weight loss jabs, right? And he goes, yeah, I've lost 1 stone in a month. I was like, 1 stone in a month? I was like, that is terrible. He's like, is that not healthy? I was like, no, that's not healthy. He's probably lost some fat with that, but he's definitely lost some muscle tone. Not that he was a muscly guy anyway, but you know, when it comes to fat loss, like I said, it's a gradual process, and all these like weight loss jabs and things, they're no good for you, right? You don't need them. You just need to stop being lazy and start being a bit more disciplined. That's it. Make sure you go to the gym 4 times a week. Hit your calories, hit your macros. That's all you need, right? And then you can think about adding some steps in and things like that. But if you just have a bit of discipline and stop being lazy, you don't need all these weight loss jabs and things like that, because like I said, they're no good for you. And you should not be dropping 1 stone in a month, right? That is just terrible. So yeah, like I said, I'm just going to leave it at that today. But yeah, just make sure your nutrition is dialed in.